We all know these situations in which we're simply unable to pay attention. We give our very best, but it's simply not possible to stop the mind from wandering off. Some of us start having vivid daydreams, while others diligently think about all the things they need to do. We engage in all kinds of exciting thoughts, but we don't do what we're actually supposed to do, paying attention. We cannot help but lose focus, often without even realizing it. It prevents us from ever paying attention, which makes it incredibly difficult to focus on the task at hand. No one likes to admit it, but we all lose focus more often than we actually like to. Even the most ambitious among us know how incredibly difficult it is to maintain a high level of concentration, especially when tired or bored. The ability to focus can make or break your success in life. In fact, scientists consider the ability to establish mental focus as an important predictor of a person's future success. It is perhaps one of the most important indicators, along with intelligence and GPA. We may be unable to increase intelligence, but we still can greatly increase our ability to focus. The ability to focus is an important driver of excellence. Focus techniques such as to-do lists, timetables, and calendar reminders all help people to stay on task. Few would argue with that. And even if they did, there is evidence to support the idea that resisting distraction and staying present have benefits. Practicing mindfulness for 10 minutes a day, for example, can enhance leadership effectiveness by helping you become more able to regulate your emotions and make sense of past experiences. Yet as helpful as focus can be, there's also a downside to focus as it is commonly viewed. The problem is that excessive focus exhausts the focus circuits in your brain. It can drain your energy and make you lose self-control. This energy drain can also make you more impulsive and less helpful. As a result, decisions are poorly thought out, and you become less collaborative. So what do we do then? Focus or unfocus? In keeping with recent research, both focus and unfocus are vital. The brain operates optimally when it toggles between focus and unfocus, allowing you to develop resilience, enhance creativity, and make better decisions too. When you unfocus, you engage a brain circuit called the default mode network. Abbreviated as the DMN, we used to think of this circuit as the do mostly nothing circuit because it only came on when you stopped focusing effortfully. Yet, when at rest, this circuit uses 20% of the body's energy, compared to the comparatively small 5% that any effort will require. The DMN needs this energy because it is doing anything but resting. Under the brain's conscious radar, it activates old memories, goes back and forth between the past, present, and future, and recombines different ideas. Using this new and previously inaccessible data, you develop enhanced self-awareness and a sense of personal relevance. And you can imagine creative solutions or predict the future, thereby leading to better decision-making too. The DMN also helps you tune into other people's thinking, thereby improving team understanding and cohesion. There are many simple and effective ways to activate this circuit in the course of a day. Using positive constructive daydreaming, PCD. PCD is a type of mind wandering different from slipping into a daydream or guiltily rehashing worries. When you build it into your day deliberately, it can boost your creativity, strengthen your leadership ability, and also re-energize the brain. To start PCD, you choose a low-key activity such as knitting, gardening, or casual reading. Then wander into the recesses of your mind. But unlike slipping into a daydream or guilty dysphoric daydreaming, you might first imagine something playful and wishful, like running through the woods, or lying on a yacht. Then you swivel your attention from the external world to the internal space of your mind with this image in mind while still doing the low-key activity. Studied for decades by Jerome Singer, PCD activates the DMN and metaphorically changes the silverware that your brain uses to find information. While focused attention is like a fork, picking up obvious conscious thoughts that you have, PCD commissions a different set of silverware. A spoon for scooping up the delicious melange of flavors of your identity, the scent of your grandmother, the feeling of satisfaction with the first bite of apple pie on a crisp fall day, chopsticks for connecting ideas across your brain to enhance innovation, and a marrow spoon for getting into the nooks and crannies of your brain to pick up long-lost memories that are a vital part of your identity. In this state, your sense of self is enhanced, which, according to Warren Bennis, is the essence of leadership. I call this the psychological center of gravity, a grounding mechanism, part of your mental six-pack, that helps you enhance your agility and manage change more effectively too. Taking a nap. In addition to building in time for PCD, leaders can also consider authorized napping. Not all naps are the same. When your brain is in a slump, your clarity and creativity are compromised. After a 10-minute nap, studies show that you become much clearer and more alert. But if it's a creative task you have in front of you, you will likely need a full 90 minutes for more complete brain refreshing. Your brain requires this longer time to make more associations and dredge up ideas that are in the nooks and crannies of your memory network, pretending to be someone else. When you're stuck in a creative process, unfocus may also come to the rescue when you embody and live out an entirely different personality. In 2016, educational psychologists Dennis Dumas and Kevin Dunbar found that people who try to solve creative problems are more successful if they behave like an eccentric poet than a rigid librarian. Given a test in which they have to come up with as many uses as possible for any object, for example, a brick, those who behave like eccentric poets have superior creative performance. This finding holds even if the same person takes on a different identity. When in a creative deadlock, try this exercise of embodying a different identity. It will likely get you out of your own head and allow you to think from another person's perspective. I call this psychological Halloweenism. For years, focus has been the venerated ability amongst all abilities. Since we spend 46.9% of our days with our minds wandering away from a task at hand, we crave the ability to keep it fixed and on task. Yet, if we built PCD, 10 and 90-minute naps, and psychological Halloweenism into our days, we would likely preserve focus for when we need it, and use it much more efficiently too. More importantly, unfocus will allow us to update information in the brain, giving us access to deeper parts of ourselves and enhancing our agility, creativity and decision-making too. Anyone who has tried to concentrate on a difficult or boring piece of work will know how tough it can be, but science has some counterintuitive findings that could help. The internet is bursting with advice on how to concentrate amid a sea of distractions. But many of them are either wildly unrealistic or leave you out of the office loop and distracted by thoughts of what you might be missing. How many of us can always find what you do inspiring and fun or would be comfortable turning off social media, spending the day wearing headphones, or working offline? Perhaps more importantly, however, many of these tips bear little relation to what psychologists are discovering about the way the human mind works. Many of the things we think we should be doing to help us concentrate actually work against the way that our brain naturally operates. So what can we learn from the science of focus to get more done, and do any of common tips actually work? It might seem counterintuitive, but allowing your mind to wander may be one of the best approaches if you are struggling to focus. There is a growing realization among psychologists that we spend an awful lot of time daydreaming, almost 50% of the time by some measures. This has led some psychologists to suggest that mind wandering is not so much a glitch, but rather a key part of the system itself that can help our brains function. Funny cat videos are often seen as the ultimate distraction for procrastinators, but some psychologists think that they might actually help put us in the right mental state to get on with work. According to a recent study, a good way to boost your reserves of willpower is to have a good laugh. This is because, no matter how much you love your job, staying focused on something difficult requires willpower. In experiments, people who had watched a funny video tried longer and harder to complete an impossible puzzle than a control group of people who watched a video that was relaxing but not funny. The study concluded that humor replenishes our reserves so effectively that workplaces should encourage a more playful culture. Creating a culture of fun in your team, where you deliberately find something funny to laugh at, like a funny email or YouTube video, would be one way of helping you to boost your work productivity, says David Chang, a leadership researcher at the Australian National University in Canberra, who led the research. Of course, this isn't a blank check to watch cat videos all day, but taking the occasional break to joke around is useful, especially when you're feeling really tired. Make it harder. To concentrate properly, you must get rid of all external distractions, right? Actually, according to one influential theory of attention, the opposite is true. Nilly Levy, a psychologist at University College London, came up with what she calls load theory in 1995. The idea is that there is a limit to how much information from the outside world our brains can process at any one time. Once all of these processing slots have been filled, the brain's attention system kicks in to decide what to focus on. Levy's experiments suggest we might be better to work not in clean, tidy and silent surroundings, but in those that are messy and confusing. It works because once all the perceptual slots have been taken up, the brain has to pour all its energies into focusing on the most important task. Distractions simply get screened out. The problem with putting this into practice, however, is finding the right kind of distraction and keeping it on the right side of being overwhelming. There are a few apps, such as OmWriter or Focus at Will, that add visual or musical distractions to order, but so far none have been tested in scientific studies and may be no better than putting the radio on. The key is to give your mind just enough to do, so that your brain doesn't have the chance to look elsewhere for stimulation. For most people it might be a case of trial and error to find what works for them, but since screening out distractions can be tiring, perhaps this is one to use sparingly, when all else has failed. Stop working. When you're up against it, taking a break might be the last thing on your mind. But there is a huge amount of evidence to suggest it can actually help you get more done. The challenge is working out when to take a break, for how long, and what to do with that downtime. Some studies dating from the 1990s suggest that due to natural variations in our cycle of alertness, we can concentrate for no longer than 90 minutes before needing a 15-minute break. Other studies have found that even a micro break of a few seconds will work, provided it is a total distraction. In the studies, people did a few seconds of mental arithmetic, so you may have to do something more intense than staring out of the window. Exercise is a good thing to do in with your break, as it seems to rev up the brain, putting it into a better state to knuckle back down particularly. According to this study, if you follow it with a caffeinated drink, take your exercise outdoors and get a further boost. Spending time in nature has long been suspected to improve people's ability to focus. Meditation is another option. There is growing evidence that experienced meditators have better control over their attention resources than non-meditators and are much better at noticing when it's time for a break. If that all sounds a bit time-consuming, the good news is that, with or without exercise, a quick dose of caffeine improves memory, reaction time and attention in the short term. So however you choose to take your break, always stop to put the kettle on as you make your way back to your desk. Don't try so hard. When you need to focus for long periods, less is more, according to studies by Joe DeGutis and Mike Esterman at the Boston Attention and Learning Lab in Massachusetts. In brain imaging experiments, they found that the most successful strategy for staying on course was to focus for a while, and then to take a short break before going back to concentrating. People who tried to be on all the time made more mistakes overall. Similarly, research by Christian Olivers of Vrije University in Amsterdam found that people's attention resources stretched a little bit further when they were simply told to back off and think about something else instead of concentrating fully. This, in fact, may be the most useful outcome of all the research into focus. The more we know about the brain, the clearer it is that stress is the enemy of concentration. So take the time to do whatever it takes to feel calmer and more in control, and, with luck, the work will take care of itself. Modern technology has given us so many amazing things, but one of the awkward side effects has always been its ability to get in our face whether we want it to or not. Notifications on top of notifications constantly threaten to pull us away from doing what's important and bog us down in busy work. The average office worker is distracted every 3 minutes. And according to research from the Human-Computer Interaction Institute at Carnegie Mellon University, it can take up to 25 minutes just to regain focus after being distracted. Losing focus is easy. Really easy. It's getting it back that's the hard part. Yet despite knowing the dangers of distraction, we do very few things to protect ourselves from it. Let's change that. Your brain is always on and taking in information, which means it constantly has to choose what to pay attention to and what to filter out. Neuroscientists call this selective attention, and it comes in 2 different forms. 1. Top-down, or voluntary focus. This is the holy grail of focus. Top-down focus is goal-oriented. It's responsible for seeing the bigger picture and uses your past experiences to figure things out. Happens when you're studying for an exam or trying to solve a difficult problem. 2. Bottom-up, or stimulus-driven focus. When a thought creeps up on you or something around you grabs your attention, like a ping, bing, or notification. You're suffering from bottom-up focus. You can't help but pay attention to what's happening. Happens when you hear a loud noise, someone pops out of the bushes, or your phone buzzes. So what's the problem? We can't control what kind of focus our brain is using. Despite our want to stay in top-down mode, bottom-up focus is able to override our brain's filters. Blame it on our fight or flight response. Loud noises and sudden movements are associated with danger. And in your primal mind's opinion, Danger takes priority over the book you're reading or the important email you're writing. And studies have shown that willpower and focus are finite resources, meaning the more you're distracted, the harder it is to get back on track. But science has also shown us that there are ways to get our focus back as quickly and efficiently as possible. Let's look at a few, 7 methods to help you get your focus back. If you've ever been trapped in a no-focus infinity loop, you know how hard it can be to get out. Here are some helpful tips to keep in mind the next time you're having trouble keeping your thoughts in order. 1. Work within your brain's natural schedule. You've probably noticed that you're able to stay more focused at different times of day. For most people, our peak distraction times occur between 12 to 4 p.m., and we feel an especially strong crash around 2 p.m. Your brain handles tough cognitive loads best in the late morning hours, after 10 a.m. At this point in the day your brain is fully awake, it's, hopefully, fed, and humming along quite nicely. Focus on intensive tasks in the late morning, and take a break or go for a walk in the afternoon. 2. Reward your mind for staying focused. Your brain learns by doing. Which means the more you engage in disruptive behavior, like checking your email or Twitter 20,000 times a day, the easier it becomes to continue to engage in it. You've trained your mind to feel some sort of reward for being distracted, and that needs to stop. Instead, train your brain to stay focused by catching yourself before you fall into bad habits. Each time you feel yourself being distracted, stop as soon as you can. The harder you make it to become distracted, the more your mind will stay focused. 3. Take breaks, real breaks. While most of our lives revolved around receiving as much input as possible, 15 tabs open at once, non-stop emails, phone calls and messages from coworkers, working as fast as possible doesn't make us better at work. In fact, it does quite the opposite. To strengthen your focus, find a place that is free from distraction. Whether that's a different part of the house or a cafe without Wi-Fi, the point here is to give your focus a chance to recharge. If you have no place to consistently go, there's even apps you can download to help you from being distracted by the internet. 4. Forget multitasking. Multitasking is actually a misnomer. It doesn't mean what we think it does. Our mind is unable to focus on more than one thing at a time, and in fact, multitasking just means switching from one thing to another very, very quickly. And the more we switch, the more energy we use, and the more energy we use, the less we have to stay focused on what matters. Make a list of tasks that need to be done in order of importance and stick to it as much as possible. The less you try to do at once, the better you'll work overall. 5. Find work that keeps you genuinely engaged. Have you ever been just about to start another task only to find yourself daydreaming 10 minutes later? When you don't believe that the task at hand is important enough to warrant your unmitigated attention, your brain begins to process other stimulus. This is your brain activating its default network, which is what you use when your brain is no longer focused on the outside world. When you lose focus, ask if it's you or the task at hand. If it's less engaging, it might be better suited to when you have more natural energy, like the late morning. 6. Practice mindfulness. Stress is a focus killer of epic proportions. Which really sucks considering that we're most likely to be stressed when we need to focus the most. Instead, mindfulness training, like meditation, teaches us to not get swept away by stress or strong emotions by being more aware of what we're doing and what we're thinking about. Try taking 5 minutes for yourself, choose one of your senses and concentrate only on this sense. Identify what your body and mind are feeling. What are you touching, smelling, seeing, hearing, and tasting? If you want to take it further, try this exercise for helping to increase mindfulness at work. 7. Chew gum. Yes, this sounds weird, but research shows that chewing gum increases the oxygen flow to the parts of your brain responsible for attention. It also improves your long-term memory and injects a bit of insulin into your blood, which may help give your brain that added energy boost. If gum's not your thing, have a snack. Your brain gets energy from glucose, and you need around 420 kilocalories in order to maintain normal function. That's about 100 pistachios or 4 bananas. If you feel your focus waning, grab a snack and give your mind some fuel. I'll take 19 packs of Trident, please. By the time you finish listening to this video, you'll have been distracted at least 2 times. Finding your focus is really as simple as just making things a little bit easier on your brain. Reduce the amount of stimuli that your brain has to put up with, work around your brain schedule, and be mindful. For all of tips and tricks, what I'm really saying is this: create an environment that brings focus to you, not one that takes it away. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so that you will be alerted as soon as we upload educational and thought-provoking videos like this one. See you in our next video.